Oh yeah, the best new metal show is back. Welcome metalheads, I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this month's album art of the week. That's right, I said month. Those of you who have been subscribed for a while have noticed that I haven't done a Best New Metal of the Week episode since last year, and we're starting back. Since I haven't done one in January, I'm going to break down the best albums of the month, including the album art of the week, so let's jump into it. Starting with the big boys, there is a new live album from Whitechapel called Live in the Valley. So if you want some good live deathcore from the big ones, there you go. And speaking of deathcore, I want to talk about Underneath with From the Gut of Gaia. You heard it, deathcore from Pennsylvania. And this one, they don't play super fast like a lot of other deathcore. They give you that slow stank face first, then hit you with the fast. Next, I want to shout out Captured Kings with Regicide. I'm a big fan of Regicide, the concept. This is prog from New Zealand, and what I really love about this is it's no frills prog. There's no keys, there's no pretension, there's guttural vocals. It's just got a lot of prog riffs and guitar solos as well, so it gives me that death metal itch scratch, so I get to nerd out just a little bit. Next up, I really loved Nemesis with Embrace Reality. This is melodic death metal from Serbia. And when I first heard this record, I thought to myself, wow, this sounds a lot like Angela era Arch Enemy, but in the modern era. And I've seen oftentimes that female-fronted death metal bands often get, let's say, annoyed when they get compared to other female bands. I promise I didn't even know that this was a female band when I heard them. I thought without that foreknowledge that it sounded like Arch Enemy to me because of the heaviness mixed with the melodic guitars with the screaming over the top of it. And the singer's voice reminds me of Angela a little bit. And then when I looked up the band, after I had that thought, that's when I saw that they were all females. I promise you I didn't prejudge you. I mean it as a compliment because Angela era Arch Enemy is awesome. I also really loved Blood Red Throne with Nonagon Death Metal from Norway. It's got all that stuff I love about death metal. It's got the staccato rhythms on top of the tight grooves, the circular chainsaw riffs, and on top of that, really weird guitar solos. You know I like it weird, so I love Blood Red Throne. And speaking of death metal, I also really loved Vitriol with Suffer and Become, death metal from Oregon. And this is super relentless death metal. Most of the time you'll hear me praise bands when they know how to utilize the dynamics. It's not a million BPM all the time. Sometimes they slow down and then that makes the speedy parts a lot heavier. This is one of the rare bands that can be fast all the time, and I still love it because their energy is just so raw and brutal. And then on top of that, the guitars are really shreddy for death metal. I nerd out about those guitars, you know it. And speaking of nerding out about guitars, I also loved Exocrine with Legend, progressive technical death metal out of France. And I reviewed this one for Metal Digest. You can find all of my written reviews in the links in the description. I talked about how mature this album is because yes, it's tech death. It has all the trademarks of tech death, the high BPM, the impressive musicianship, but they don't do it for just the sake of doing it, just to show off. Everything is in service of the heaviness. And then every now and again, they give you something out of left field. Maybe a little jazzy section with some horns, maybe a cyberpunk section. They're all very short. It just volleys up the next crusher. I love it when you focus on the heaviness. Exocrine does that. And I got one more for you before we do the album art of the month. I may not have been doing best new metal shows every week like normal this January, but that doesn't mean I wasn't paying attention. And if you follow me on social media, hint, hint, then you will have seen that I was blown away by the new album from Distances called Abstruse. This is atmospheric post-metal from New Mexico. I love this one. It's a little too early to be talking about album of the year lists, but I think that this one will be on the list. I don't know how far back or how far forward yet, but I just am absolutely crushed by this. It's so eerie sounding, but it's still really heavy with brutal vocals and clever atmospheres. I was like, okay, I have to talk about this even though I'm not doing a show. So I plastered that album all over social media. And now that I'm doing a best of January show, that's the best of January. Now let's talk about the album art of the week. My favorite album art of the month came out this week. It's from Hellman. It's called Born Suffering Death. This is death and roll out of Chile. A lot of killer stuff coming out of Chile the last couple of years. And I love this album art. You've heard it said on this podcast many times that all metal is an exercise in existentialism. Shout out to David Burke, the PhD candidate in metal studies, turning me on to that idea. It completely changed the way I look at metal and life itself. This album art is a perfect representation of that concept. You've got the baby, the man, and then the skull, which represents the circle of life that happens to every single one of us. We're all born, we all live, we grow old, and we die. No matter where we come from, no matter what our circumstances are, we all have to grapple with that. And this art distills that down into a powerful image. And it just looks cool. Maybe you want to listen to the record, which I did, and it's awesome. That's the job of great album art. That's why I'm picking it for this month. And speaking of David Burke, the PhD candidate in metal studies, that's right, you can get your doctorate in metal. I spoke to him on this month's podcast about why Sleep Token fans and Five Finger Death Punch fans are the way they are, why journalists in metal are the way they are, and the influencer economy in metal, and metalheads' attitudes about life, and so many other things. If you want to catch that, just click right here. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.